This is where machines become legends.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are setting the scene, not in some high-tech factory obsessed with EV range and autonomous driving.
No, not at all.
We're winding the clock back hard, back to the mid-1980s.
It was a really pivotal moment, you know?
It really was. The whole automotive world, it seemed like it was turning a corner towards, well, mass appeal.
Maximum convenience.
Exactly. Comfort, reliability, all for the average commuter. It was a time of, I guess, homogenization. The car was becoming less of a passion project and more of an appliance.
And that context, that backdrop of growing conformity is absolutely critical to this story.
Yeah.
Because while the mainstream was chasing comfort, something radically subversive was brewing in these quiet engineering offices deep inside BMW's M division in Munich.
I had a different idea.
A singular, profoundly non-commercial idea to create a machine that wasn't designed to glide smoothly into a suburban driveway, but to absolutely decimate the competition on the most brutal racetracks in Europe.
Exactly. And the sources we've pulled together, they paint this picture of just ideological purity. So our mission today is a deep dive into the BMW E30 M3.
The legend itself.
A car that didn't just become a successful model, it earned its status as a legend. It's a touchstone for performance that still defines the brand decades later.
It really does.
So we're going to explore the details. How did this specific car become more than just an automobile? How did it become this perfect expression of engineering where compromise just wasn't on the table?
And, you know, the sources reveal this really profound truth about its existence, which explains why enthusiasts treat it with such reverence today.
It's almost religious.
It is. This car story is about the engineers and the rigorous demands of the racetrack, dictating the design, overriding every single typical concern.
All the stuff that usually filters down from accounting or marketing.
Gone. Do you want to understand what a pure, almost ideological machine looks like when it's brought to life? You look at the E30 M3.
That tension, that battle between the balance sheet and the engineering blueprint, that's what makes this story so fascinating. Okay, let's unpack this, and let's start right at the beginning.
We have to start with its foundational purpose, because the M3 was not a response to market demand for a faster 3 Series.
Nobody was writing letters asking for it.
No, it was born purely out of a rule book. BMW had this clear, ambitious, almost arrogant goal in the 1980s,
Which was
absolute dominance in European touring car racing.
And where specifically were they aiming this firepower? This wasn't just about winning a few local rallies, was it?
Oh no, this was the pinnacle. They were targeting 2 specific, highly prestigious and fiercely competitive series. First, the DTM, the German Touring Car Championship.
Huge in their home market.
Massive.
Yeah.
And second, the global Group A racing category. The ambition was total comprehensive victory, across the board, to establish BMW as the undisputed technical leader.
And this is where the rules of the game become the primary non-negotiable design document for the car itself.
Exactly.
You couldn't just build some bespoke, multi-million-dollar prototype, ship it to the track, and go racing.
No way. There was this crucial, and I should add, financially demanding rule that mandated the very existence of the road-going M3.
And that rule was homologation.
Precisely. The strict requirement for entry into Group A and DTM was the necessity of homologation. This meant to even qualify, you had to produce and sell a road car that was, for all intents and purposes, the same as your race car.
So how many did they have to build?
A minimum of 5,000 units.
5,000.
5,000 street-legal versions sold over a 12-month period that were identical in their core chassis, their engine configuration, and their aerodynamic profile to the car you intended to run on the track.
So they literally had to sell their race car to the public.
Yes,
Yeah.
just slightly detuned and with some upholstery thrown in.
That is the ultimate constraint. That defines everything about the M3. It means the typical hierarchy of making a car was completely flipped on its head.
Absolutely inverted.
Usually, marketing sets a budget, they figure out a target demographic for a new car, and then the engineers have to figure out how to hit those targets while managing cost.
Right.
But here, it was the exact opposite.
It was. This inversion of priorities is the core reason the E30 M3 was born, and it's why it feels so different from its rivals. The sources make this incredibly clear.
How so?
The vehicle was shaped solely by the demands of the engineers tasked with winning, and by the unforgiving demands of the track. Crucially, every single decision was made not based on what the marketing department wanted.
Or what they thought a consumer might want in terms of comfort or quietness.
None of that mattered.
I can't imagine those boardroom meetings. The marketing department was essentially told, here is the car required to win. It has extremely expensive bespoke parts and a demanding, high-revving engine. Now go figure out how to sell 5,000 of them.
It's an act of defiance, really, a defiance against the entire comfort-oriented industry of the time.
And that defiance started right at the foundation. They took the existing, successful E33 series chassis.
Right, a great starting point.
Yeah.
But the sources emphasized this was no simple upgrade. They nearly recreated it from scratch.
Wow. That's a huge commitment.
It was a massive industrial commitment. They had to use completely bespoke tooling and specialized sheet metal just for the M3's body shell.
And why was that? Just to make it look different?
No, it was all function. The race car needed to run much wider wheels and tires, and the aerodynamics had to be perfect. That mandated entirely new fenders, new rear quarter panels, a new trunk section. Almost every exterior panel was unique to the M3.
That specific detail, the bespoke tooling for such a low-volume car, that must have been where the accounting department just threw up their hands.
I'm sure it was a battle. For the accountants, this was an insane expense. For a car they would only sell 5,000 or 6,000 of initially. It was a huge commercial liability.
But it was justified by the promise of winning.
That was the only justification. The M division, led by people who understood that racing success sells the standard 3 Series on Monday, they effectively said, look, we need the structural rigidity and the wide track of the race car. The only way to get it is to start over on the exterior panels and reinforce the chassis significantly.
So it was so much more than just adding a body kit or boosting an engine.
Oh, worlds apart. This was a fundamental engineering project focused on weight reduction, rigidity, and optimal aerodynamics for sustained high-speed racing.
That phrase from the sources, nearly recreated it from scratch, that really suggests a level of structural and material commitment that goes way beyond a standard performance variant.
They weren't just modifying an existing platform. They were essentially designing a purpose-built car within the basic dimensional envelope of the E30.
And that's really the why it matters here, isn't it?
It's the whole point. This mandatory relationship between the road car and the race car, this homologation, it resulted in a level of purity and engineering focus that is incredibly rare. I mean, it's almost non-existent in modern vehicle manufacturing.
Every decision had to be defensible on the track first.
Every single one.
Right.
From suspension mounting points to the precise dimensions of the sheet metal, there was absolutely no room for aesthetic compromise or chasing consumer trends.
It was a machine optimized for a single brutal task.
Winning races.
Yeah.
And only secondarily designed to pass emissions and safety tests for the road.
It's the ultimate example of function-defining form. The purpose of the car literally sculpted the metal, which brings us perfectly to the M3's physical presence. It looks nothing like a standard 3 Series, and it's all down to physics.
Exactly.
So if you look at an E30 M3, especially next to a standard E30, it just looks dramatically different. And the sources confirmed the philosophy here was, well, it was to be fast, not elegant, not stylish.
Speed was the only measure of success for that design team.
Right.
And you have to remember, the standard E30, while it was a handsome sedan, it was not aerodynamically optimized for speeds over, say, 130 miles per hour.
And that's a problem on a DTM circuit.
A huge problem. The sources detail that the standard body created excessive lift at high speed, which is incredibly dangerous for racing stability. The engineers had to transform that shape into one that cut through the air cleanly while generating significant downforce.
And you can see that functional demand in every single unique piece of the M3's bodywork. It's aggressive, it's muscular, it's wide. This is not subtle customization. It's a comprehensive functional redesign.
It is.
So let's run through those specific elements and the aerodynamic purpose behind each one.
Okay, we can start with the most visually arresting part. The widened fenders and quarter panels, the box flares.
Why are they so wide?
Simple. The race car needed to accommodate substantially wider racing tires. We're talking running on 18-inch wheels, much wider than stock, to maximize grip and cornering speed on the track.
And if the race tire was wider than the standard car could hold?
Then the road car needed the fenders to match for homologation. So that necessitated the bespoke, bulging sheet metal. No other reason.
It's essentially wearing tailored racing clothes, but the real subtlety, the truly complex engineering that separates it from just a cheap body kit, you find that in the rear profile, don't you?
You do. Particularly the window and the C-pillar area. That's where the deep dive into airflow management really comes in.
What was wrong with the standard car's setup?
Well, the standard E30 has a relatively upright small rear window and a fixed C-pillar. At speed, this creates a large, turbulent pocket of air behind the car. dirty air, as they call it.
So the M3 features a more slanted rear window and a special C-pillar design.
Yes, and that changing the glass and the angle of the main cabin structure, that was a huge undertaking.
Why go to all that trouble?
It was critical for stability and drag reduction. By changing that angle, the engineers were able to keep the air flowing cleanly off the roofline. This slightly shallower angle in the new glass, it successfully managed the airflow separation point.
And what did that achieve?
It created a clean sheet of air to hit the newly mandated high-mounted spoiler on the trunk lid. It's all about guiding the air as efficiently as possible.
And speaking of the trunk, the aerodynamic trunk itself, it sits higher, doesn't it?
It does, and it's designed for maximum downforce and stability at high speeds. It's essentially a fixed wing element working in concert with that C-pillar to push the rear tires onto the pavement.
You can just see the entire design flowing from front to back, maximizing the aerodynamic efficiency needed for DTM, where stability at over 150 miles per hour is absolutely non-negotiable.
And it wasn't just the back. Even the front splitter and bumper cover were redesigned not just to look aggressive, but to manage airflow underneath the car and direct cooling air to the brakes.
And here's where it gets, for me, really interesting. This is the heart of the M3's legend. The sources state this explicitly, that none of these pieces, not the fenders, not the specialized C-pillar, not that high spoiler, none of them were added for aesthetic reasons.
Not one. Their single, uncompromised purpose was to win on the track by providing optimal stability and low drag.
So the aggressive, iconic look that is so celebrated today, the one that collectors are paying hundreds of thousands of euros for, it's just a byproduct of pure engineering.
It's an accident. The aesthetic appeal is a beautiful accident. It looks muscular and iconic because it is functionally perfect for its task.
Exactly. And you contrast that functional design approach with modern car design, which so often starts with a focus group, defining what looks good.
And then the engineers have to try and fit everything within those visual constraints.
Right. The E30 M3 started with zero aesthetic concerns. It only cared about the coefficients of drag and the downforce numbers on the track.
And that explains why it resonates so deeply, even decades later. It's an honest design. It looks the way it does because it must look that way to fulfill its purpose as a Group A racer. There's nothing extraneous or simulated about its muscular appearance.
A rare quality today.
Very rare.
So that brings us to what's under that aerodynamically shaped hood.
Now we get to the core of the visceral experience. The engine. BMW designated this specific power plant the S14 code engine.
And this wasn't just a tuned-up version of a standard engine, was it?
No, this was a masterpiece of compact, high-performance engineering designed specifically to withstand the stress of endless 7,000 RPM abuse on the track.
So what were the key specifications? I mean, this was an era where BMW was famous for its smooth, torque-rich, six-cylinder engines for their road cars. This was a departure.
A huge departure. It was intentionally small for a performance icon of the time.
Yeah.
It had a 2.3-liter displacement spread across just 4 cylinders.
4 cylinders, why not 6?
That decision was critical for weight and packaging, but also for the high rotational speeds they needed. Crucially, it was high revving and naturally aspirated.
So no turbo, no supercharger.
No forced induction. It relied on precise engineering, large valves, and exceptional breathing at high RPMs for its power.
And you mentioned its pedigree, which is essential context for understanding how this engine behaves. It didn't just spring from nothing.
No, it carries heavy genetic weight from BMW's M division history. The S14's lineage traces directly back to BMW's legendary M88 engine.
Which was the powerhouse in the M1 and the first M5, right? The big straight six.
That's the one. The formidable 3.5-liter straight six. To create the S14, BMW engineers essentially took the architecture of the M88, specifically its advanced 4-valve per cylinder head design, and they effectively lopped off 2 cylinders.
Just cut 2 cylinders off a successful engine. Why?
2 main reasons, and both were dictated by the racing rulebook. First, DTM regulations favored lower displacement, and they needed an engine that could compete in that 2.3-liter class.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, by making it a 4-cylinder with a shorter stroke, they optimized the remaining 4 for instantaneous response and extreme high RPM work. It ensured it carried both Formula and DTM genes.
So the 4-cylinder design was actually stronger for this purpose.
Exactly. It's inherently stiffer, with fewer rotating parts than a long straight 6. It could reliably sustain the continuous 7,000-plus RPM required in competition, something the standard 3 Series 6-cylinder was never engineered to handle over long periods.
It was built for that sustained high-stress environment of racing. Let's talk numbers for the initial road version, just to set the stage.
Sure. The initial version was potent for its size. It produced 195 horsepower in its catalyzed form.
In performance,
That translated to a 0 to 100 km/h time of about 6.7 seconds, which, those were definitely strong numbers for the mid-'80s.
but the real story isn't the numbers.
The numbers are completely secondary. The real story is what happened when you push the accelerator.
Because the sources, they all emphasize that the actual metrics, the acceleration times, they were secondary to the real point of the car, which was the driving feel, the character.
Precisely. The sources describe this demanding personality. The S14 engine, quote, started living above 7,000 RPM.
Wow.
It wasn't delivering torque from the low end to comfortably cruise around town. It required the driver to actively work the precise 5-speed gearbox and keep the engine singing at high revs.
So you had to keep it between, what, 5 and 7,500 RPM to get the best out of it?
You did. You had to drive it hard to get the reward.
And that active relationship, it extended beyond the engine, right? The controls were famously direct and raw.
They were truly analog.
Yeah.
The throttle responses were described as instantaneous. And when we say that, we're talking about a physical mechanical connection. A cable directly links the gas pedal to the throttle bodies.
No digital buffer.
No electronic interpretation, no throttle-by-wire lag, just the immediate physical consequence of putting your foot down.
And the steering.
The steering talked to the driver. This implies a mechanical link where the driver received constant, unfiltered feedback about the road surface, tire grip, the car's dynamic state, right through the rim of the steering wheel.
It sounds like a car with no secrets. It communicated everything, good or bad, directly to the person behind the wheel.
It was a very high-fidelity driving experience, but also intensely demanding. The summary from the sources is clear.
What's the verdict?
The E30 M3 did not accept passivity from its driver. If you treated it like a regular commuter car, you would miss the point entirely. To extract its performance, you had to be engaged, responsive, and willing to push it hard into that high rev band.
It demanded this deep physical relationship built on skill and attention.
It really did.
To use an analogy to make that unfiltered feedback relatable, it's like learning to master a classical acoustic guitar versus using a modern digital synthesizer.
Oh, that's a good one.
The digital one can produce perfect, filtered sound easily. It can compensate for your minor errors. But the acoustic instrument, it demands constant physical input, strength, and skill to produce the best notes. And crucially, it tells you immediately if you made a mistake with a painful buzz or a flat tone.
That is a perfect comparison. It's spot on.
What stands out to you about a car demanding that level of active engagement?
For me, it's the consequence of that design. Mastery. Since the car provided that unfiltered feedback and required high-rev mastery, the driver who understood the machine, who learned to dance with the gear shift and keep the engine on the boil, they could perform feats of precision and speed that were impossible in lesser cars.
It fosters a deeper connection.
A spiritual connection almost, between man and machine, built on a mutual respect for mechanical limits. And that demanding nature is precisely what its modern-day fans cherish. It forces you to become a better, more sensitive driver.
And it was all designed by a race team that wanted their drivers to feel every single nuance. That purity was a performance advantage.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the ultimate validation.
Right. The ultimate validation of this engineering first, marketing second approach wasn't in the sales figures, though they did manage to sell them.
No, it was found on the podium. The M3 was built for one reason, and it delivered spectacularly.
And the historical title the E30 M3 earned is just. It's striking. It's the metric that cemented its legend forever.
It is the defining statistic of this car's legacy. The BMW E30 M3 became the most race-winning touring car in history.
Period.
Period. That speaks volumes about the soundness and the resilience of the original homologation design and the continuous development that followed. It dominated an entire era of motorsport.
They achieved that absolute dominance they set out for. Let's just list the sheer breadth of the victories this car secured, because it wasn't just confined to Germany.
Oh, the list is breathtaking. It claimed multiple DTM championships in Germany, the European Touring Car Championship, or ETCC, and the World Touring Car Championship, the WTCC, in 1987.
Which was the only year that championship was run under the Group A rule set, right?
It's the only year. And it won.
Okay.
Beyond the series titles, it secured these prestigious, brutal endurance wins that require both speed and immense reliability.
Right.
Multiple overall victories at the Spa 24 Hours, key class and overall wins at the Nürburgring.
And winning those endurance races, especially the 24-hour events, that proves a different kind of quality than just raw qualifying speed.
It's a whole different level. It speaks to the fundamental durability of that S14 engine and the chassis platform they built.
For a 2.3-liter four-cylinder screaming at 8,000 RPM for 24 hours straight, to consistently beat six-cylinder and turbocharged rivals.
It just proves that the engineering focus on robustness was paramount. It wasn't just fast, it was built like a tank that was capable of sustained surgical strikes.
And to put this into context, they weren't competing against amateurs or lightly backed teams.
Not at all.
They were up against serious manufacturer-backed machines that were also built under those same strict homologation rules, all vying for the same glory.
And the competition defined the era. It was ferocious. We're talking about the Mercedes 190e 2.516 Evo.
The direct, often politically charged competitor.
Absolutely. And the Alfa Romeo 155, which came a bit later with impressive sophistication. And of course, the formidable Ford Sierra Cosworth.
Which was known for just sheer straight-line speed thanks to its powerful turbocharger.
Massive power.
I want to pause there and connect the M3's character to this competition. So you have the Sierra Cosworth with huge turbo power, overwhelming on the straights. You have the complex Mercedes Evo with its tuned suspension. And then you have the M3 naturally aspirated, focused on balance. What allowed it to consistently prevail?
Well, the sources consistently note that despite the high caliber of the machines it faced, the result was, quote, most often the same. The E30 M3 was the winner.
How?
Its success came from a balanced approach that exploited the weaknesses of its rivals. It wasn't always the fastest in a straight line because the turbo cars often had more ultimate horsepower, especially in qualifying.
So what was its advantage?
Instead, the M3 was critically durable. This allowed it to maintain a punishing pace over long distances without mechanical failure, which was so important in long DTM races.
So reliability trumped raw, unstable power.
Yes, and handling. It was incredibly balanced. Its relatively lightweight and perfect 50.50 weight distribution meant its handling was predictable, precise, and agile. It gave drivers the confidence to push harder into corners.
So where a turbocharged car like the Sierra might suffer from lag and difficult power delivery mid-corner,
The M3's linear, naturally aspirated power was always available and always manageable.
and we're connecting back here to its unique character. It was also described as unforgiving, which sounds like a strange quality to attribute to a winning car. Why was that demanding nature a key to its racing success?
Well, in the hands of an elite professional driver, that unforgiving nature meant there was less of a filter between the driver's input and the car's response.
More direct communication.
It allowed the top drivers to push the limits right to the absolute edge, feeling exactly what the car was doing at all times. If a tire was breaking traction, if the balance was shifting, they knew instantly. That unfiltered feedback was a critical performance advantage.
The car didn't help you, but it told you everything.
Perfectly put. It had a steep learning curve, but once mastered, the machine became an extension of the driver's will.
I wonder, though, did the sources suggest that the car's highly technical, demanding nature might have actually alienated all but the most elite drivers, limiting its mass market appeal even further?
That's a great point. In the commercial sense, yes. It was never an easy car to drive fast. But in the racing context, the demanding nature of the S14 was a filter for talent. It rewarded the most skilled and dedicated drivers.
And the M division only needed a handful of those.
Exactly. And the sheer volume of victories, the championships, the endurance races, it justified the entire expensive homologation process.
If we connect this to the bigger picture then, this consistent dominance cemented the M3's reputation as the ultimate road-legal race machine of the era.
It wasn't just proof that BMW could build a good car. It proved the fundamental validity of that homologation-first engineering philosophy. The track validated the engineer's vision completely, time and time again.
Which means they couldn't stop. A key part of maintaining that dominance was the realization that engineering is never truly finished.
Especially when your rivals are constantly pushing the boundaries. BMW could not rest on their success. They were constantly developing the E30 M3 throughout its racing life, pushing performance further as regulations changed and competitors improved.
And this necessity for continuous improvement under homologation rules, that's the interesting part.
Right. Whenever a competitor raised the bar, say, the Mercedes Evo II was released with better aerodynamics, BMW had to release a corresponding road-legal upgrade to qualify their race car for the new season.
Which resulted in this series of increasingly extreme variants for the public.
Exactly. This is the beauty of those rules. The racetrack effectively served as the M Division's R&D department. Every fix and every upgrade had to trickle down to the street car.
So let's track the variants that came out over the car's production run, each one making the road car just a little bit closer to the actual race car.
Okay, so first we saw the Evo first, then the Evo 3, and finally the ultimate iteration, the Sport Evolution.
Let's touch on the Evo Ion 2 first. What were the tangible differences that qualified them as new homologation batches?
The Evo first, which came out in 1987, made incremental chassis and engine refinements. They often increased the power slightly and refined the intake system.
Small step.
A small but important step.
Yeah.
The Evo second in 1988 was a much larger jump. Power increased again, and they introduced lightweight components.
Like what?
Thinner rear and side glass, lightened body panels, all to shave precious pounds off the curb weight. And critically, new, larger front spoilers and rear wing elements were introduced to improve downforce, which necessitated yet another homologation run.
And now we get to the deep dive into the Sport Evolution, because this model, limited to only 600 units, seems to be the point where the line between road car and race car just practically vanishes.
The Sport Evolution was BMW's final, definitive statement on the platform. They were essentially saying, we have pushed this as far as the rules will possibly allow.
And the key change was internal, the engine.
It was. The engine size was increased from 2.3 liters to 2.5 liters, maximizing the displacement allowed under the Group A racing regulations for that class.
And how did they achieve that extra volume? It's not a simple task.
No, they did it by increasing both the bore and the stroke of the S14 engine, which required significant re-engineering of the crankshaft and pistons. And to handle the increased thermal stress, the Sport Evo engines featured specialized oil sprayers mounted underneath the pistons to ensure maximum cooling and durability.
And that increase in displacement, that translated into a massive jump in power output, right?
It did. Power output jumped significantly from the initial 195 horsepower of the standard car to 238 horsepower in the Sport Evolution model.
That's a 22% increase in raw, naturally aspirated power.
From an engine that was already highly optimized, it was the peak of what was achievable with a four-cylinder motor of that size at the time.
And the final step in this evolution involved refining the aero package one last time.
Yes, which suggests that even after years of competition, they were still finding marginal gains. The Sport Evolution included the integration of adjustable aerodynamic parts
Adjustable on a road car.
on a road car. The driver, or the owner, could literally adjust the angle of the front splitter and the rear spoiler for different track conditions. You could set them for max downforce on a tight track or less drag for a high-speed circuit like Monza.
That is a level of adjustability usually reserved exclusively for professional racing machinery.
It is.
And the sources provide a really succinct verdict on the Sport Evolution model, don't they? It encapsulates just how far they'd pushed the concept.
They describe this ultimate model as more of a licensed race car than a road automobile. It was the purest form of the E30 M3 vision. It existed solely to satisfy that homologation requirement so the track car could compete.
So its usability on the street was clearly a secondary concern.
Completely secondary to its ability to win.
This raises an important question. How far did they push the concept before it just became unusable on the street? And the answer seems to be they pushed it right up to the absolute line of street legality.
And what this continuous development signifies about the relationship between racing and consumer models during that time is profound. The track provided direct, critical, immediate feedback that was incorporated right back into the production car.
Every Evo model was a mechanical patch, a performance upgrade proven under the most grueling conditions.
Exactly. Modern performance cars often draw inspiration from the track. The E30 M3 literally was the track car, just slightly detuned and with a license plate.
So let's fast forward nearly 40 years. The E30 M3 is no longer just a used car or a fun classic, it's a monument. The sources give it a specific status upgrade that goes beyond simple nostalgia.
Today, the BMW E30 M3 is considered sacred, not just a classic.
Sacred.
That designation implies a reverence that goes beyond typical sentimentality. It suggests it represents a set of values, a mechanical ethos that have been fundamentally lost in the modern automotive world.
And that reverence is tied directly to what it lacks compared to a modern performance vehicle. It's the anti-modern appeal, the purity that defines its value today. The modern driver appreciates it because of its absences.
That's a great way to put it. If you look at the elements enthusiasts revere, they are all absences of digital interference. There are literally no electronics mediating the core driving experience.
Which means the driving is unfiltered.
Completely unfiltered. The power steering is hydraulic, not electric. The braking is mechanical, assisted only by hydraulics, not by sophisticated electronic stability control programs.
It relies purely on mechanical systems. Can you give us a technical example of what that purity means in operation?
Sure, take the differential. The M3 uses a highly effective, robust mechanical limited slip differential. This system physically locks the rear wheels together when it detects slip, providing predictable, immediate traction.
And a modern car.
A modern car uses electronic systems to simulate this, or to assist a mechanical diff. The M3 system is raw. It transfers power immediately, but also means the car is completely unforgiving if you over-accelerate mid-corner.
And the result of all that mechanical purity is what we talked about earlier, the immediate, unmediated feedback loop to the driver.
Exactly. It offers pure feedback. Every vibration, every slip, every momentary loss of grip is communicated directly through the steering wheel, the chassis, the pedals. There are no computer systems filtering out the noise for the sake of comfort or safety.
If the tail steps out, you feel it immediately and you have to react immediately.
You are the traction control.
Right. And the core realization that drives its legendary status in the collector market is this: such automobiles are no longer produced. It really is the end of an analog era.
That is the central thematic point. In a world where even the most aggressive sports cars rely on sophisticated traction control, stability programs, torque vectoring, electronic steering racks that simulate feel, the E30 M3 represents the absolute pinnacle and the end of the truly analog high-performance machine created by a major manufacturer for racing homologation.
It's a driving experience that requires and rewards skill in a way modern cars simply cannot replicate.
They can.
And that reverence has tangible consequences in the financial market. We need to quantify its modern monetary status.
It's astronomical. It reflects both its rarity and its mechanical purity. The value of a standard, well-maintained E30 M3 today starts comfortably at $250,000.
€250,000.
And that's the starting point. For the truly special, rare versions we discussed, like the Evo Tusk or the Ultimate Sport Evolution, where production numbers were extremely low, prices regularly approach and even exceed €1 million at auction.
That price tag puts it firmly into the territory of high-end automotive investment, alongside much more exotic supercars of the era.
It does. But the sources are quick to clarify that the price is secondary to what it represents.
The money is just a symptom.
Exactly. The monetary value is merely a symptom of a deeper global respect for what it achieved and what it represents. The price isn't the point. The heritage is. What matters is that this automobile represents the spirit of an era.
An era where engineering purity and a singular commitment to racing excellence completely superseded commercial practicality.
It's a physical manifestation of engineering idealism.
So, to summarize the legend we've explored through these deep, detailed sources, the BMW E30 M3 is defined by its demands and its unwavering honesty.
It does not seek comfort. It is loud. It does not forgive mistakes.
If you try to pilot it passively, relying on electronic buffers, it will punish you severely. But critically, it strongly rewards correct driving with a level of feedback and precision that is just intoxicating.
It's the ultimate driving litmus test. The commitment to homologation building a race car that just happens to be road legal resulted in a machine that is still talked about today, still raced in historic events, and still dreamed about by enthusiasts worldwide.
Its legacy persists because some automobiles are truly made of legend, not just metal.
And the E30 M3, driven by that race-winning imperative, is arguably the purest expression of that idea in modern automotive history. It's a testament to a time when constraints fostered perfection.
And that focus on purity and unfiltered feedback is the core lesson of this deep dive. It reminds us that every advance comes with a trade-off. And that leads us to our final provocative question for you to mull over.
Okay.
If the absolute purity of feedback, the talking steering, the immediate mechanical throttle, the raw connection, is what makes the E30 M3 sacred, what critical element of true mechanical mastery is inevitably lost in today's performance cars that must prioritize electronic assistance, filtered comfort, and ubiquitous safety features?
That's a fascinating tension to consider.
How does that trade-off, purity for usability, define the modern driving experience compared to the mechanical, high-rev brutality of this 1980s icon?
Because every driver assistance system, while enhancing safety, necessarily adds a layer of interpretation between the driver and the road. The E30 M3 offered zero interpretation.
We'll leave you to think about that analog perfection and the cost of the digital filter. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
The story fades, the legend remains.